Welcome to the Brothers and Sisters podcast. This is what's coming up next, so stay tuned.
Was this just a question, or somebody was actually offering that?
No, they got the money together. They offered it to me.
Why do you associate with these types of people? The person who would do some shit like that is truly an awful human.
Yeah, no, they're like, he's not that bad. I'm like, no, he is really that bad. And then he's like,
you know what? You are that bad if you are if you're putting that out there. You are trash. Period. Yeah. There's no such thing.
What would it take? What would it take for you to wear a MAGA hat? I was like, there's no amount. I would have to live with that.
Pretty much saying, what would it take for me to take away your dignity?
That's exactly how I looked at it, right? Yeah. That's exactly how I looked at it. Outside of the obvious, and we're just to give people a little background, we were talking about it. I'll share it in the write-up. There was a viral kind of sort of wedding photo shoot, pre-wedding photo shoot. Interracial couple decided to go with the master-slave theme. So the black groom was dressed like pretty accurately like a runaway buck, and like she had on like her 19th century like mistress like dress or whatever, attire or whatever.
Come on,
they acted out these scenes. He was like proposing to her and wanted like to cut off like pants or whatever like that. Yeah, it gained a lot of, first of all, it got like 1,400 likes before I guess people started roasting it. And the couple hasn't reacted to it yet. I wish I could give, like I said, it'll be on the write-up, so you guys will check out the write-up when we post the podcast. But can you do that?
If you want to, that's your wedding photo shoot. I mean, I guess. Do it. They're the only ones that really have to look at the pictures.
Whose idea do you think it was?
It was a joint effort, I'm sure.
His.
You think it was his? CT? Why?
And I could be wrong, but the unmitigated gall of the wife to be like, you know what I think would be cool?
Yeah.
You being a slave.
She could have she could have just planted the seed and it just blew up in his mind. She knew what type of duty it was, maybe.
Exactly. So if she started this, it was like, we should add some historical flair.
Like, honey, I want to watch Django tonight. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's how they get started. Okay, get stuff that way.
Perhaps.
And there's,
I just feel like
it's her idea, and she was the one that greenlit it, because just from what I know about men, like, y'all don't really want to do wedding photo shoot
stuff. A corny like this though is probably way.
Like, all right, whatever she wants.
A man like this though.
Yeah, he's obviously a different type of brother, Autumn.
You guys are trying. We can use the word, like, I'm fond of using the word. It gets me banned on social media a lot. He's a fool. That's what you guys are alluding to.
Yeah, your favorite word.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say it. I didn't want to say it.
I wasn't going to say it first because I'm a guest.
Yeah.
What did that have to do with it, right? Like, what did his parents say? What did his brother say?
I want to know why. Right?
Like when they say, "Mom, look at my photos." Did she say like, "Yo, what the fuck were you doing?" I mean, I don't know.
No, what do you do with this?
He could be adopted by a family who's not black.
True.
Or he could be.
Where is his friends?
Yeah.
They're all white.
Questions. His friends could all be white, and this could all be legitimate, right?
He's one of those black guys that's probably like just the black guy in the group, and enjoys that. He likes being the only one.
I was in a school like that. I went to a school that way, and we didn't yet. No,
I know some proud tokens, but even with them, they wouldn't do slave stuff.
Yeah.
There's a decent amount of us that probably just knowing Kwasi and what you just said, Walter, that went to like prep schools, and I can tell you that none of this ever came to my mind.
Couldn't do it.
When I was in high school, nobody bothered. No one would have even thought to ask this. No. And maybe it's just maybe it was the attitude some of us brought as the colored people at the school, but no one would have even begun to think to ask this. And so anybody who, whether it was her idea or him being like, it'd be great
How come nobody knows it's wrong?
The fact that she didn't check it. If it was him, the fact that she didn't check it. If it was her, why he's still with her? I mean, it's so many layers.
There's just some
but
They both clearly had to want it.
these photographs should have never been fucking taken.
So
right? Like
I'm scrolling after like the fourth one because I was like, this is
photographer had to be
they
like,
just want this attention. They
this makes me uncomfortable.
I'm curious about what both of them do for a living.
Yeah.
Like, is it something
independently wealthy
do
because
they
they
have
ain't gonna get no
YouTube
job.
because that's how I was like, what did they do?
Right.
I'm wondering if they
Yeah.
have like a YouTube channel where they talk about their relationship and like I'm wondering what they do. Clearly what they do is not like
But honestly, like,
Plantation wedding agency.
probably a market for that.
There
this
is
is
probably
like
a
a
market
thing.
for that.
I'm beginning to see, like, I think that there are like a subset of like Black and colored folks who like really want to be in these relationships to the point where like dignity be damned. Because
Right.
I saw this one Black woman who her husband had never seen her hair. Like she just would get up early and put on like a weave and then like before make sure he was asleep before like she would, how like, I mean, you all know Black women wrap our hair, go to bed. And it's like, whatever
Black
happens
men-
before or after that, we'll take it out, we'll put it back on, whatever. But like the man had never seen her hair.
Yeah,
And
that's
this
tough.
was her husband. And
That's
it's
tough.
like the amount of like, and then when she finally showed her real hair, he was like, what the fuck?
Are they still
And it
together?
was actually painful to watch.
The type of person that she was.
Yeah, send that link on this. I want to see that. I gotta see that train wreck happening. Send that to me. I need to see that train wreck for sure.
Wow.
Far
Yeah.
too much selling out. Far too much selling out.
But I mean, there are Black women. I know personally of some Black women who, they grew up in predominantly white environments and for whatever reason preferred socializing the way white people socialize to the point that they wouldn't know how to date any type of man other than a white guy. So, like, all right, well, this is what you do to get them and keep them.
So this is becoming interesting. This is becoming like an environment, like almost a sociological conversation. And I think it makes sense because when you're talking about marriage, you're talking about, combining your villages or whatever. Nobody in either one of their realms was like, this is a bad idea, guys, or
I'm saying,
you get the wrong kind of attention if you do this. Like,
They have to want the wrong kind of
babies. Look at our slave photos.
And how old are they? Are they like under 25 or their brains haven't been fully formed? So they just think it's a funny idea. Like, okay, this is totally what we're going to do. Like that kind of goofy.
Again, like we just have
That's funny.
we just have the photos. They haven't done the couple they reached out to. And I mean, I imagine they're probably going to formulate some sort of a statement because this thing is going viral and they're getting roasted. Like,
they do it. Like, what kind of rock are you living under? You have to know that this is going to get a lot of attention and you're going to get roasted and people are going to ask questions. There's no way you can't anticipate that unless there's just some crazy, weird circumstances where these are just two people who manage to not be aware of what's going on around them and are not self-aware and don't have families that talk to them. Like, they had to know.
Insulation is insulation, right? Like, it's
where? What place with no TV?
That type of insulation is real, like,
it's impossible. It can't exist because they posted it to Instagram. How could what?
Right.
We were talking about the photographer. You guys think they hired a special photographer? Or was the photographer like, this is what you guys want?
It's a photographer that got paid.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what the photographer said.
It's a check. I mean, it could be a photographer that was passionate about it. It could be someone who's not doing a lot of gigs.
Because that photographer would never get work ever again. You actually took the photos.
Yeah, I think they should remain anonymous. That was probably in the contract.
Yeah, I would probably keep it in the contract.
That was in the contract. You tell no one
who's down on their luck and it's just like, I needed a check. I didn't want to do it, and the whole time was just like, I can't believe I'm doing this shit. But
Autumn, you're an artist. Could you do like, what if you got a famous patron, a wealthy patron who wanted to commission like a series of like slave paintings, like submissive like slave paintings? Like, could you do it? No,
that is not my art style to do that type of work anyway. But even if I were to do that, like, I'm not going to compromise my beliefs.
That's where I am. That's my point. Like, so
I mean, when it comes to that, now there are some things that maybe I don't know what it is, but I'm sure someone could pose a question and be like, these aren't in alignment with your beliefs, Autumn. Could you do some artwork related to that? Maybe, but this particular thing, no, because that's not okay. It's unacceptable to me. It's disgusting. Like, disgusting that's funny.
So no amount of money.
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I
$100,000, and I want you to paint this painting of me being a white man whipping these 10 Negroes for $700,000 cash in your account tomorrow. Are you not going to do it?
That's the thing. I don't know. First of all, I can't paint. I can't draw or paint people. But if we were to say if I could, I don't know. It's easy for me to sit here and say, no, I wouldn't do that because nobody's actually offering me that money. But if someone were offering me that money, I can't give an honest answer. My gut says no because.
So Quasi.
Because where would I go as an artist after that? I would have to be paid millions of dollars because nobody's going to want to work with the Black woman who painted that and sold out for $700,000. Everyone who looks at my art is going to say the same thing. She got that little $700,000. I hope she's happy and keep going because there's so many other talented people you can work with. So if that were a lot of money, that would be suicide for me. Like,
Donald Trump gives you a check for $10 million to provide his defense. Are you going to do it?
I'm sorry. What was the question?
I can defend anybody. If I were in court, I can defend anybody.
Donald Trump gives you a check for $10 million to defend him. You going to say no?
As a lawyer?
I don't know if that's going to be valid. It's going to bounce.
That's
as a lawyer, that's an easy check. And I could make the argument easily to be like, look, he offered me the money. He didn't tell me I had to be a lawyer. I did the best I could and I got paid off of especially what you do with the money afterwards. Like if you were to donate some of it to like noble causes for Black people, like you could finagle that into something that's not self-serving.
It's no different than artwork then. So with
I've got not $10 million. I have a cadre of white friends who obviously I'm the Black dude and ultra left. So we were arguing about Trump. $25,000 and a free trip to St. Bart's. But I'd have to wear a MAGA hat the entire time and I couldn't do it. Wasn't enough. Don't care about the vacation.
So was this just a question or somebody was actually offering that?
No, they got the money together. They offered it to me.
Why do you associate with these types of people? The person who would do some shit like that is truly an awful human.
Yeah, no, they're like, he's not that bad. I'm like, no, he is really that bad. And then he's like,
you know what? You are that bad if you are if you're putting that out there. You are trash, period. Yeah. There's no such thing.
Like, what would it take for you to wear a MAGA hat? I was like, there's no amount. I would have to live with that.
Pretty much saying, what would it take for me to take away your dignity?
That's exactly how I looked at it, right? Yeah. That's exactly how I looked at it. That's exactly how I looked at it. $25,000 and a vacation in St. Bart's. His house. Couldn't do it.
I can make $25,000 on my own, and I can go to St. Bart's on my own.
Not without, exactly. Not wearing a MAGA.
I'm not that pressed to go on vacation.
Bingo. But those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. So we're like
$4 million. You wouldn't do it?
I couldn't do it. No.
10?
I couldn't. It's tough, man. You gotta live with the images. You gotta live with the.
Jeff Bezos got that money.
You're feeling like a sellout, right?
He's gonna give you $100 million to wear a MAGA hat.
$100 million to wear a
MAGA
MAGA hat.
That's what I'm saying. With these impossible hypotheticals, ain't nobody giving out their money to put no hat on.
That's what I'm saying.
Just
25, maybe 50 grand, right?
This goes back to what we were talking before about how people put out these ridiculous relationship questions and then thoughts. Like that, your question is the equivalent of ladies, like of the woman washing her partner's feet. Like that is the equivalent, kind of like.
Nope.
This is a ridiculous scenario.
It's
And
not
if a person really,
it's not ridiculous. It happened.
If
it happened at least twice.
If the only stipulation is I wear a MAGA hat,
I can't
and that's it, I'll do it because you didn't tell me what I could do to that MAGA hat. So I'm gonna do whatever I want to it and go on my vacation.
You gotta wear. I'd have to wear the MAGA hat around.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying. No, if you can finesse it, like
if you
didn't give you any stipulations, you could cut the whole front off of that bitch.
That's what I mean.
And wear it, like, put your hair, your dreads stick out the top. You know what I'm saying?
It's just a red hat with no Make America Great Again on it.
Right.
Basically saying, would you pay me $10 million to be Rudy Giuliani and make an ass of myself in court?
Exactly. It's the same kind of thing. Would you do that?
Because I have to like face my family and I have to,
right? Exactly.
And also I'd be disbarred because it wouldn't take that long as it did if my black ass gets up there like, wait, what's the standard of review? No.
Yeah.
They will disbar me that day.
I'm not to practice. I haven't practiced, but I was watching like, I
don't practice either. And
I could have done better than that as a 1L. Goodness.
I think when I saw there was like, which level of scrutiny? Intermediate or whatever.
He was like, which I saw that. Oh, his excuse was that he was rusty. He hadn't been in a courtroom in 25 years.
Use that one. And I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah. No, he hasn't been in a courtroom in a while.
I'm just saying it's possible that John Q photographer could have gotten the bag and he took the pictures.
Yeah, I can understand why a person who is
no way that any human being with an access to the internet, which obviously they have, would do some bullshit like that. Period.
Think it's okay?
I think that was in the contract that his name not be used, probably to like when all of this hits the fan, which any logical person knows it would. He got his little piece of check and said, never mention my name again. So he got out like a bandit because that would be my stipulation if I were to do this. I'd like never say my name.
Ever. Don't if you say who did your wedding who did the wedding photography, you will owe me money.
And that's largely what happened.
Willing to suffer consequences.
I think. Go ahead.
I said, but hey, it was probably a lovely day for them.
I'm sure they had a grand old time. I'm sure they, like, you said they probably went home and watched Django and
there's definitely some.
And he ripped her dress to tatters and ravaged her.
Yeah, there's definitely some role play for sure.
Come on over here and bust up this shiffer robe. Like,
there's definitely some role play in that for sure. That's sad though. It's very, very sad.
It's sad, but if they're happy, whatever. It's not my life. It's not my business. Like, just leave us alone. Leave us all alone.
Madness, though, man. I can't believe that anybody in 2021 would subject themselves. I mean, that's a family heirloom. Your wedding photos, right? Your engagement photos. How do you explain that to your grandkids?
Oh man.
Or your kids.
Oh God.
A lot of times have more sense than their parents. Your kid's gonna come out and be like, I want to be emancipated at 15 because look at my parents. Like,
that's a fucking sellout. Mom is a closet racist. Like, oh God.
They probably
not closeted, right? Because they can't even call I don't see race thing because you clearly do.
Clearly do.
They probably fetishize each other.
So. These are clearly defined roles. Let's go into it. Let's go into it. We don't need to pause it. We can make it happen as we approach the 11:30 hour this Thursday, July 22nd. Miss Thomas, you've made it. You've made it through a full episode of the Brothers and Sisters. Now is the hard part where we get to grill you.
Go for it.
Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what's up. First, thank you for joining us. You kind of sort of gave us kind of sort of a path from law school, though you didn't mention that you were Wolverine, even though you did say you're from Detroit. The path from law school to private practice to DC. You say you kind of sort of ended up that way. Were you always interested in politics, or were you always interested in lobbying, or was it just by accident? You just take the next job that offers you the most money, like our parents.
I would not have been on the Hill, but if that was what I was doing, a really crappy strategy. So essentially, what happened with me is while I was in undergrad, while I was having fun and partying at U of M, I was also a poli-sci major, and I really enjoyed it. So I always knew that I wanted to work in politics, because one of the defining moments was, I don't know if y'all remember, but the affirmative action case that centered around U of M. And a bunch of us went 2003 or 2, I can't remember. But like the law school and the undergrad were their cases were going to the Supreme Court. So that's a bunch of us down there in buses. And I got to like stand on the Supreme Court and shout and all of that goodness. And I was like 20, and I was like, oh, this is cool. So I went to law school knowing that eventually I probably wanted to be on the other side of the law, like making it or helping make it. But you know, you go to law school and then you graduate with all of the debt up to your eyes, and then the counselor's like, you should really work at a law firm if you want to pay this off. And now we know outside of law school the racket that they are doing, but at the time you're just like, okay, I am graduating with over $100,000 in debt, so let's do it. I go to a law firm, and that was I started the day Lehman Brothers crashed. And so I started my professional career on 10. So basically I worked for a few months, and they were like letting people go as I was there. And I hated it. Like I absolutely couldn't stand, like this was not my ministry, but it made a lot of money. So I did it. And then one of the rounds of layoffs, I was one of them. And I was like, okay, so I'm at kind of a crossroads. I only have a year of work experience, and I can stay in New York, which I loved, by the way, and struggle like everyone else because the financial industry was in the shitter. And where was I going to work? So I was like, well, this is probably the time, if any, to go to DC. And so I couldn't get a job because you have to have Hill experience to work on the Hill. And so, which makes tons of sense, right? And I got it in. I went from making 6 figures to working as a legal intern for Senator Gillibrand for nothing.
Yeah.
So that's how I got started. That's how my Hill career got started. I went to Veterans Affairs Committee briefly, and then the house flipped, so I was out of a job again. And but this was my welcome to politics. And that's when I got the job with the Oversight Committee working with Mr. Cummings. And so that's where I spent the vast majority of my Hill time there.
And how was that experience?
Oh boy. Anyone heard of Congress? I mean, I'm trying to remember who the majority guy was. Isa, Congressman Isa.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I started out with Mr. Cummings basically being like, we in for a fight. You ready? And I'm like, yep. And so he's like, I like the fact that you're from Detroit. You got a little something in you. I was like, yeah. A lot of what you got in Baltimore, bro. So, and so from that moment on, I mean, he was a tough boss. Let's be clear. He was no joke. But he always made sure that we were lifted, like made sure that I was learning and made sure I was lifted. But like one of my working on the Oversight Committee during that time was wild, because you had like Congressman Isa like turning off Mr. Cummings' mic when he was trying to talk. Like that was one of like those moments where it was like, we don't even care to protect, like we're not even going to act like we have any decorum. And that's literally kind of, you started to see the breakdown in decorum like slowly over the Obama years.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, and then Trump comes and it's just like, boom, we don't care what we say. But like you started to see it, you know, where it's like you're gonna turn a ranking member's mic off, like in the middle of his stuff. Like how disrespectful, racist, and condescending is that? But hey, he can do what he wants. So it was those type of experiences, and that's just one example of working for the oversight committee where, I mean, we were literally, you know, throwing blows basically. But it definitely affected how I like went about my career, being in such adversarial scenarios.
How many other Black women did you see on the Hill? We'll give a ballpark.
On the House side,
Yeah.
there were a fair amount. Like there was the House side. When you look at you know, Capitol Hill, you kind of look at the House as undergrad and the Senate as grad school.
Gotcha.
So the House is more people. I mean, just by sheer numbers, you know, 435 members. So you're gonna have more Black and brown people. That's just, I mean, what it is. In the Senate, it gets progressively whiter. Like, it's a stark drop off. And so, yeah.
Do you see would you see yourself going back to that side? You're working for a company, not a company, but like an organization now, right? Focused on healthcare, right?
Yeah.
What's are you looking at the different? Do they have? Is it overall like? Are we talking about like public option or single payer or infrared?
We're talking about like public health, like essentially, like why are we not prepared for a pandemic?
That's a fair question.
Yeah. It's like why that's the type of stuff that we really deal with at Trust for America's Health, which is like talking about. This is the first job I've had. You'll find this funny, Kwasi, is that is nonpartisan, because clearly I work for Planned Parenthood, which is nonpartisan. But you know,
of course it is. Absolutely.
Of course. But like this is the first job where like literally we don't like it's not supposed to be one side or the other. Like we're really just dealing with science. But then you know how that works when you're talking about science.
It can be politicized.
And yes. So we're really the people who are like, can we please fund the CDC? And folks like, the CDC don't know what they're talking about. It's like, oh. But you do. YouTube University.
Yes, you who got straight C's.
Free.
Okay.
This pandemic has shown me that a policy issue, but we really need to beef up our educational system.
Oh,
yeah.
Because this is, I mean, we already knew it, like watching like stuff like just through our lives. But when you really have nothing to do and all you see is people with their hot takes on a pandemic that just descended upon us.
Yeah.
Everything from 5G to like Black people can't get it to like, and I'm like, whoa.
The takes are scorching hot. They are.
Scorching.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I just wanted to make a plug for education funding.
So, what would you define, just for general, not for us here and our audience, when someone says they're a lobbyist or they lobby, what does that mean specifically?
What that means is they're advocating for a particular cause. They're advocating so for me, it's public health. There is a lobbyist for literally anything. So there is a lobbyist for the NFL. There is a lobbyist for the NBA. There is a lobbyist for all the major sports. There's a lobbyist for like pick up bread, like bread. There's lobbyists for that. Like there is lobbyists for literally everything. And I think what happens is people hear lobbying and they're like, pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
And it's like, not only am I not lobbying for that, I don't make nearly the money that if I lobbied for that. So keep it correct. Because I have definitely had people, I'll say I'm a lobbyist and they're like, I hate lobbyists. You know,
they clearly don't even know what a lobbyist is. If you just, that's so general.
No, I've gotten a ton of that where it's like, I hate lobbyists. They're like ruining our country. I lobby for Planned Parenthood.
Yeah. The same as the people who say they hate lawyers.
Yeah, same.
Like, oh, you're a lawyer? Well, yeah.
You all are liars. It's like, last I checked, Donald Trump wasn't a lawyer, and
he lies all the time.
all the time.
Exactly.
Biggest
Oh.
liar in
History.
So your previous, in that same vein, the lobbyist Cecilia Thomas, your previous experience working in the House is probably attractive to organizations, right, on who are looking to get their initiatives put forth, passed. Is that correct?
Yes. And I should say, just for full disclosure, I did work in the Senate briefly for one of your favorite members, Classy.
Who? Which one? Give them to me.
Bernie.
I'm sorry?
Bernie.
Bernie Sanders. Wow. I got nothing against Bernie as much as I have against his supporters.
I think supporters are the problem.
Bernie, I'm ambivalent towards. Some of his supporters,
But let's keep it a stack. When I was working for him, no one gave a damn about Bernie or feeling the burn. This was 2009. So he was like a socialist from Vermont that no one cared about. So I was attracted to that office because I'm like, oh yay, socialism and all this stuff. And then I was like, oh, okay, I need to leave the Senate because the Senate was a bit too, and you can't do as much because you have to coddle everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
There's always like Rand Paul who has a problem, and then we all have to stop and find out what's wrong with Rand Paul. So the House was a different experience.
Guys, I mean, don't have me ask the questions. You guys have something, go at it, because I have questions.
So as you made the transition into lobbying, what made you decide to go into public health versus one of the bigger industries?
That's a good question.
That's a great question, actually. I knew, so when I got into lobbying, this was a very sad and desperate point in my life. Not to say that I've loved lobbying, but at the point where I was at, it was right after the 2016 election. It was 2017. I was unceremoniously kicked out of the Obama administration because when the administration changes, they're like, get out, you're it. So I was basically, and this is a nod to Mr. Cummings, I was out of work and didn't know what to do because, I mean, the streets were flooded with Obama orphans and Hillary people who thought they were going to be in the Hillary administration. The House and the Senate had flipped. So there was really no room for like a resume that looked like mine. So what I did was, I knew I did not want to stay on the Hill because I'd already done it for such a long time. So Mr. Cummings told me I could come back there in more of like a senior role so I can help, younger staffers while I was looking for a job. And so, such a good guy. And so I was there for about 5 months looking, and I knew I wanted to continue to do something, to answer your question, Walter, that I cared about, that I still gave a damn about. And I knew that was going to be difficult, but I still I've been very blessed in my career to be able to do things that make me happy. And obviously not everything I did on the Hill was like touching my soul, but like you got a lot of opportunities to work in healthcare. So when I was on the committee, kind of as to directly answer your question, I worked on healthcare.gov. So we were working on healthcare.gov when it came out and did not work. I remember Republicans were like, the website doesn't work, so let's scrap the whole thing. What? So a lot of my time from 2014, funny enough, the website launched the day of the shutdown, that 2 weeks shutdown back then, because they were like, oh, let's take Obamacare out of everything. And they're like, no. So
that was Rafael Eduardo, wasn't it? Who orchestrated that shutdown?
Yep.
That was Rafael Eduardo. Yeah, I remember him going hard for that 2014.
Yeah, he did. He was. He filibustered.
Yes. And so, exactly. And so The website didn't work, as a lot of major websites don't when they have a lot of kinks, but the Republicans are just like, well, this means we should just, scrap the whole thing. And so a lot of my time for 2 years was spent defending the ACA.
Yeah.
Before I left and went to the administration. So that was really where I got into healthcare, and really into like public health and how crappy really, you know how you get used to something because that's all we knew was how garbage our healthcare system is. And I've been somebody that's been without healthcare and just had to be very careful. So when you realize like kind of how garbage it really has been, especially for Black and brown folks, it puts a onus to keep working at it. And so then, I went to Planned Parenthood because they gave me a job, and I was like, thank God. And you get to work for such a powerhouse, you knew that like, regardless of whether I liked it or not, I had that on my resume and I could maneuver that into something else. And that's what I did. I loved working, I love working on repro, but then I realized, public health, is a wider and less, it's less angry because there's a lot of anger when you say Planned Parenthood versus like, can you fund the CDC? When you say let's fund the CDC, people just ignore you.
Right. I mean, healthcare is something that's important to me, obviously, nature of the beast. But I think that it's commendable the type of work that you do because healthcare, we are the only country in the world that operates the way that we do. We operate on a whoosh.
Yeah.
Them bills to get paid when I go to the hospital. I mean,
especially when you get older too. You also have to be proud that you defended it, you worked on it. Now here we are, 10 years after passage, and
still around.
Like I saw it. Yeah, I saw it. Not only still around, it's never been more popular. It's like 56, 57% for now.
Yep.
Like that's a remarkable accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thanks. It was a group of us just getting screamed at on a regular basis. But when you have these type of jobs, it's one of those things where you have to decide what's important to you because you're not getting rich, and you have to decide what actually makes you tick. And for me, and that's something I did learn from Mr. Cummings, is like, let your passion have a purpose. And
there you go.
I mean, that's something that we can all quote Mr. Cummings, all of us, for the things that he would say like that. Like, what are you doing for children unborn? Like, what are you doing for the next generation? Mm-hmm. And so I really took those words to heart, especially like remembering after he passed, just all of the things he would say to all of us and really taking that and using it to make a career that I've enjoyed more than just proud of. I've enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. When I say K Street, what does that mean to you?
Money. It means money. And influence. So those would be the two words, money and influence.
Do you see yourself? Can we see CC Thomas strategies on K Street? Is that in the future?
It might be, but you best believe that it would be catered to our folks. It would be so like I've been doing this long enough to know that this is like if I'm gonna start my own thing, it is going to be like a shop for our interests. And
I think it was actually Bernie's director of Black Outreach who said the toughest thing about going against Hillary Clinton was that Bill Clinton kind of opened up DC for Black lobbyists. Like it was wholly white before him. And then his like kind of sort of administration was like the first one where like Black political actors, Black organizations, having Black people working for them would be like, yeah, like, you have access to House members, you have access to Senate members. So I think that's interesting. What advice would you have for my students who watch this podcast, or college kids, or even people just out of college or in law school or grad school, about getting in DC and becoming lobbyists?
Make sure that oh god, there's so much. First make sure you have an idea of what you want to do, because if you don't, they're gonna if you get a job, they will put you where they want you. And this is an environment where, especially when you're starting out, nobody really cares about what you want to do. Like, you get in where you fit in. um I'm not someone who enjoys really the political. I love the political process. This is where me and Mr. Cummings were similar. We like the idea, the passing of the bills, all of the things that actually make laws work. The extra stuff, the schmoozing and the the ass kissing and the what do you do, that gets very old. But the problem is you do have to play the game to a degree. And then it's like we said at the very beginning of this podcast, you play the game until you can figure out how you can play it to your advantage and do it your way. And like we were talking about, people don't just start off being like, I want to change this. When I first got to the Hill, who was I? No one knew who I was. So I had to meet people, even if I didn't want to talk to them, even if they were a jerk. It's like, but you gotta be nice to this person. Now, about 10 or so years in, I don't have to talk to you. I can, I can kind of maneuver, and I've made relationships that were genuine, that have helped me more than the phony ones. But I would tell folks, and it's hard when you're from places like Baltimore or Detroit, where everything is just like it is what it is. You talk plainly. We don't do all of this. It's hard, but it's a game you have to play until you can figure out how to do it to your advantage. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. And also, don't let yourself get used up, because like anything else, they're not paying you nothing. So you're going there working hours upon hours upon hours for like $45,000 in a city like DC.
Yeah.
That's how much rent is for the year.
Exactly. And you have
Right.
like 15 people living in a row house, and it's like, I fine, I get it. I was young. I lived in the basement too, in a cold basement at that. But realize your worth and know that, like, what is the next step to get me paid and to get me where I can have a livable wage? Because it's like I was constantly looking for opportunities, and like, yo, I'm broke and I'm doing all this work. Mr. Cummings, pay me. And that is a direct quote. So like, yes. And whether he was pleased by it or not, he heard me. So
real.
You got to make sure, because like we were talking about before, Black and Hispanic and like people of color are largely told you to just be grateful for being here. And we got to take that. We got to take that and throw it away.
Outside of, we have Trust for America's Health, and of course, Cece's bio will be on the write-up, so everybody will be able to see her extensive history. Is there anything that you want to plug?
Ooh, do I want to plug? I would plug this podcast, because this has been great. This has been
Thank you. Thank you. We tend to get that.
Such good content. I would plug this podcast, and I guess really just plugging, if your students are watching, just making sure you use all this technology to your benefit and not to have it like come back to bite you. Like, do stuff like podcasts, express yourself. I'm not saying don't express yourself in other ways, because I was young too. Thank God we just didn't have phones. But like but like,
Thank
definitely,
God.
I think this is such a good platform. And I think that, like, as younger people are starting to find their voice a little sooner, thanks to social media, stuff like this is really helpful and pushes conversations forward. So I would plug just this podcast and any young folks doing a podcast on their own to talk about stuff.
Again, I don't think, does anybody have anything else? We cannot thank you enough. Cecilia Thomas, Senior Government Relations Manager at Trust for America Health. Like I said, we talked online so much. It's good to like hear your voice and like, put a voice with like the commentary, the back and forth that we've had. We're going to have kind of a summit of all of our guests, probably at the end of the year. maybe if COVID dies down, we could try to do it in person since everybody's been more or less on the East Coast with the exception of Paul Sims, who's in Nashville, but he'll be back anyway in Baltimore. So hopefully you'll be able to come back and join us there. Big party,
in
nice
Baltimore?
conversation. It might be in Baltimore.
Because I'm 45 minutes away, and I always
there.
I always need an excuse to come to Baltimore and have some crab cakes.
Exactly. There you go. There's a crab cake plug for Baltimore in itself. And then Walter's in Delaware. He's 45 minutes north, and you come down. We can make it happen for sure.
Please do.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you.
Yes, very nice meeting you guys, and I hope to hang out with you guys another time.
Absolutely.